Good morning from beautiful Brisbane, Australia. It's great to be here with you this morning. It's Tuesday and we've got an exciting subject, defensiveness, to talk about this morning. My name's Linda. I'm your certified trauma recovery coach, and it's great to be able to share with you information that was requested by one of our global family members on defensiveness. And the more I looked into it, it became apparent how much the neurological wiring, our nervous system and everything impacted this subject, and how we cannot be noticing it. And I was really excited when it was requested because I just worked out the internal thought process of what was going on for me internally as well. So great information this morning. Hang in there, and I will put these notes up on the page. There's 3 pages of notes I've made so that you can watch the video again and you can bring it all together. Make notes about what's happening for you in this area as you recognize each thing. Now, remember, the important thing is this is information where we're going to be able to help turn our internal world around into a really positive, happy place. And I don't mean happy, joy, everything's wonderful. I mean into a really soul-centered place where we're going to go, oh, that makes sense why that's happening. Okay, so welcome. Good morning, Ali. Well, good evening, Ali. It's for you. And it's great to have our class together. So defensiveness, pardon me, with complex trauma, it starts early in our life as a safety mechanism, and our unconscious becomes wired this way. So it's part of the safety mechanism that develops deep in our brain that we're not aware of, and it absolutely happens unconsciously. So we need to bring into our day-to-day life a conscious awareness as we bring each part together. When we get defensive, we aren't doing it to be malicious, okay? Our core intent for us is to feel better, to feel safe. And it does hurt both parties when we do get defensive. And we can see that when we're having a conversation with somebody else and they get defensive, we're actually able to recognize it because we can feel the shift in the energy between us. It's like, oh, wow, why are they being defensive? When I said, hey, what about we do this? We didn't mean to upset their apple cart in any way, shape or form. It was just a suggestion. But if that person is, it's a trigger, change is a trigger, and change can be a trigger for us with complex PTSD because we grow up not knowing that we've developed inflexible thinking, and therefore we need to be able to go, hey, I can recognize that's happened. There's a change there. So one of a really good tool when you're having a relationship is to be able to be aware that if there's an external change, I need to reflect internally and feel if it's put me out of whack. Okay, feel if I have fear around the change. Now, you may not feel the fear straight away. At first, your first response might be a bit of anger, a bit of frustration, a bit of, I can't breathe, why is this changing when I had it all sorted out in my mind that we were going to go one step here, one step here, one step here. And that might not seem like inflexible thinking, as in we're happy to negotiate. But remember, this is an unconscious response happening. And so we have to develop that awareness around our inflexible thinking as well. When I first read about inflexible thinking with complex PTSD as being one of our symptoms, I sat here and I literally went, I don't have inflexible thinking. And I went, okay then, right, that was a trigger. And so I had to read about inflexible thinking and work through, is my thinking inflexible? Or ask a different question and say, whereabouts is my thinking inflexible, and why is that happening, and where and how can I make those changes? Okay, so when we're prepared to ask ourselves internal questions, it becomes, I can say, the reflection becomes increasingly deeper and we know ourselves more well, and then we can go, right, okay, I need to communicate to this person that I'm feeling uncomfortable about this change. I'm feeling that I need to take a deep breath and I want us to work through the changes that you suggesting. I haven't said that word in a long time. Suggesting, and can we just take it one step at a time? One of my greatest learning points at the moment is slow down. So I used to go at everything like full on. It was just go, 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 go. And as one specialist said to one of my sons, your mum was dealing with 3 different kids who needed 3 different things at 3 different times. And it was just solve the problem, let's go, solve the problem, let's go. Whereas now I go, right, let's just slow down. I'm limited. I can get so much done. And that makes it more flexible for me. It's like giving myself permission to say, hey, let's just take this one bite at a time. Because when I do that, then I'm not going to get defensive. And I'm going to be able to say, I need to process this in this way. So, and one of the things that happened around that was Nick and I were driving to the doctor's last week for Nick, and I'm asking him questions, and I'm not getting an answer to my question. I'm getting completely different answers. And I was getting angry, like frustrated. I'm thinking, I'm not asking the right questions. I'm not able to think of another right question, but then I don't understand the answers I'm getting either. So I'm sitting there getting increasingly frustrated as I'm driving along. And Nick said, are you angry? And I said, yeah, I am. I said, I'm angry because I don't understand what questions to ask you in order to get answers that I understand. I said, I'm not angry at you. I said, I just can't wrap my mind around whatever it is that's happening for you because I'm not in your shoes. So when we were able to open that conversation up by being authentic about how we were feeling, then it takes away, first of all, defensiveness. So I'm not going to go on the defensive and think, and we think, well, right, fine then. If you're not going to give me the answers I need, then fine. And we do it at a really deep level where it's unconscious. So we have to build our awareness around our internal responses to the events that are happening. Okay, so we want to know, what can defensiveness look like? So it can appear that the person that you're talking to is not listening to you, or flip it around, it can appear that you're not listening to the person that is talking to you. It can appear like they make a lot of excuses, or that we're making a lot of excuses. It can appear that they're blaming us for the problem, or we're blaming them for the problem. So we've got to see this from both sides. Remember, communication is both sides. They say that you did the same thing that you're always unhappy about them doing. Again, turn it around. They talk a lot about why they caused the problem, trying to justify their behaviour. So listen to the words that you speak. Are you trying to justify your behaviour? Right? These are really key points to when we're being defensive. Are you focusing on things you've done wrong at other times rather than the current issue? And we do this. We absolutely do this. We focus on how many times we've had this conversation, how many times this conversation has gone wrong, instead of bringing it into the moment and dealing with the conversation that's in front of us. And it's like this big, it's like a mega highway pile up on the inside of us, and it's one thing after another after another. And so each time the conversation comes up, our escalation point gets reached very quickly. But once we start to realise that this is happening, that the super highways building up on the inside, then we're going to take responsibility and go, okay, can we just stop the conversation for the moment? My super highway of emotions is building up and I've got to take the pressure off. I've got to work through what's happening for me emotionally. And another thing that can happen is we notice that people are either trying to tell us how we're feeling or we're trying to tell other people how they're feeling. And when we're coming out of complex PTSD, this is something for me personally that I have to be very aware of. Well, I'm building an awareness. It's not an overnight transition of making sure that I'm not telling someone how they're feeling, because remember, in our childhood, especially with emotional neglect, we learn to read people, okay? And we can often read people better than they know themselves. So it's like putting a manners bank in place and going, okay, even if I can see how someone's feeling, it's not my job to point it out, okay? I have to respect their process and what they're going through. The only difference is when I'm coaching and people come to me to identify what's happening with their emotions, then I'm not going to sit back and go, and how did that make you feel? You be honest. I can see this is what's happening for you. And oftentimes that opens doorways for people. So you can do it, but it's how you phrase it. I can see that you're feeling this way. Does that resonate with you? Okay, you don't want to be a coach in real life, as in your intimate, personal, private relationships. You want to ask questions, okay? You want to get to know each other on a deeper level. Okay, and it's really easy because it's unconscious. It is super easy not to notice when we're defensive, because it's just a reaction, a response, an automatic behavior that we developed many years ago in our childhood. Well, for some of us, it's, not many years ago, just a few, I'm sure. So we have to be willing to observe our own behavior and recognize the defensiveness when it's happening. So what does defensive behavior is more likely in these circumstances? So these are a set of circumstances that you can look at in your day-to-day life. Now, as I go through the list, just pick one that you can see. You don't want to give yourself ticks for everyone and say, oh yeah, because if we do that, we're so human and we go, oh, well, that's just too hard. I am the way I am. Take me or leave me. Well, if we have that attitude, most people will leave us. So we want to choose one to work on at a time. So our words and actions are focused on judging, criticizing, or evaluating the person we're talking to, okay? Listen to your thoughts, and if they're judging, if they're criticizing, or if they're evaluating the person, know that your unconscious defensiveness has gone off. You're looking for safety, okay? You treat the other person as an object rather than a human with feelings. If we've had, in particular, sexual abuse, I know that this can happen very much unconsciously because it's very much we want to stay safe. So the unconscious trigger goes off because we want to stay safe, all right? Our words and actions seem carefully designed for some purpose other than interacting with the person. So be aware when you're talking to someone, have you got your mind on them and then your mind on another problem? Because then you're going to be trying to solve what's in front of you and just go off. So you're not actually thinking about the person and being in the moment. Your mind's off somewhere else. So we do actually have to train ourselves to be in the moment. Okay, another thing is, if people think we're being fake to get something we want, they may become defensive, and vice versa. Our words and actions seem to be geared towards controlling the other person. And I want to say I had this conversation on Sunday night with a friend about how with complex trauma we grow up wanting to control situations because we want to be safe. And until we have the information that that's what we're doing, we don't know that we're doing it because it's just our normal way to be. So we have to be willing to do this work and turn it around and do our internal work where we can recognize where we're trying to hold on to control, and letting go of control can seem a very unsafe space. So we want to do it with people that we can trust, okay? Don't just do it with any Joe Normal that comes in off the street. Do it with people who know you, that you can trust, that you can walk through this process with. Now, another circumstance that it can happen in is they may be even more defensive if it seems like we're hiding motives behind our behaviour. Okay, so we emphasise that we're superior to the other person. And many years ago, I definitely used to do this because I would only talk when I knew I was right. Now, I didn't know, sorry, I'm laughing now, but at the time, I didn't know that I did this. So I would have been one of the most frustrating people to know, because I didn't talk unless I knew about the conversation, unless I knew I was right. Because I was so bound up with fear inside of me of being wrong, because being wrong meant there were consequences in my life. Okay? So when we can unpack the core belief, then it frees us up that we know that it's a beautiful mess and I'm going to be wrong, but I can go on the adventure of being wrong and working through, not about being right or wrong, but what's my next character development that I need to take hold of. There's more on the list. I won't bore you with it all. And so I want to talk about ways to behave in a more healthy manner. So rather than placing a judgment on the person you're talking to, we merely describe what actions, words, or qualities that you want to discuss. Okay? Now remember, this unconscious trigger is happening deep in our brain, and it happens because we want to be safe. It can happen automatically because we feel like what's happening in front of us is totally out of our control. It's unmanageable. So the way we turn it around as well is to say, I am safe. So repeat, I am safe, and I can manage this. I can manage as an adult to find different ways and different solutions, not just to the problem externally, but I can find different ways and different solutions to how I'm feeling internally, okay? I can begin to process this internally. Now, one of the things that I did when this subject came up last week, I was actually going through a time when there were external circumstances happening that were beyond my control. So imagine being at work and there's other people that are in charge and they're doing things that you don't understand, and you're trying to scratch your head and you're trying to work out what does it mean by all the actions that they're taking, and you're feeling excluded. So what I did was listen to my thoughts. Now, my thoughts on the defensive were, right, that's it, I'm going to go in and I'm going to say, I want X, Y, and Z. I want to know why this is. Pardon me, why are you doing that? Why am I being excluded? And as my thoughts went on, I went, oh my goodness, why are you thinking like this? And of course, now, having done the research on defensiveness, I went, what is the core belief that I'm holding on to that's making me think this way? So remember, with defensiveness, we've got to look at our patterns, our beliefs, our thoughts, our emotions. So the big question that I asked myself was, what am I afraid is going to happen? What's the fear that I'm carrying from decades ago from my personal issues? And as I just sat with it, I went, oh my goodness, I'm afraid I'm going to lose everything. So in an employment situation, I would have been afraid I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to lose my standing in the community, and that whole fear came up. And I went, well, none of that's true. And I'm able to go, right, stick it over there. So what is the healthy response to this? And the healthy response was to keep letting things unpack or unfold as they do. If I was in that work situation, I would have went, okay, I know I'm not going to lose anything here. This is my place of work. People don't have alternative motives going on. They're just doing their job. What is it I need at this particular point in time? And I went, I don't need to worry about what's happening in this other place. I just need to keep focusing on the one next thing that I've got to do. And then all the emotional turmoil that was inside of me left because I came off being defensive about things that were out of my control. So the turning it around is going, okay, if I can see that things are out of my control, then I need to ask myself, what is the core belief or the core fear that's making me feel unsafe? Okay. And when we answer that question, then we can come off the defensiveness and we can actually go and have conversations. If I wanted to, I could go and have conversations with these people, but I don't. Once I realized it was just the defensiveness trigger that went off, I went, I don't need to have any conversations. I just need to keep focusing on the one next thing I need to do. Okay? And so look at areas where you want to sit and work out why we feel threatened. Okay? Why do I feel threatened in this situation? What do I feel is out of my control here? What do I feel if I let go of control? What do I feel will happen internally for me? Okay, so especially if you're working with the abandonment trigger, the emotional neglect trigger, it will definitely help you in being able to communicate more effectively. And then when you find people that actually are doing the conscious warrior process of doing life consciously, you can have these open conversations of saying, yeah, this is what happened for me. So when I was talking to a friend on Sunday night, we were both able to say, this is what happened in my previous relationships that I could see where I was trying to control the outcome. And now that I understand it, I can let that go. I can see where my inflexible thinking wanted everything in a certain order for me to feel safe. And that's why things wouldn't work out. So when we do this level of stuff, level of internal reflection, it's not just stuff, we free ourselves up from an unconscious trigger that wants to keep us safe. But now as adults, we can turn it all around and say, I am safe and I can manage what is unfolding in front of me. Okay, I hope that helps. I will put the 3 pages of work that I did up so that you can see it and read it and go through it. I haven't gone through it all because basically sit with it in your heart and just feel what's right for you that you need to address in a personal relationship and where you're being defensive. Remember, we can never change anyone else. We can only change and work with our internal journey so that we come into healthier relationships where we're going to feel safe to be fully known and fully accepted. Have a gorgeous day. Thanks for joining in, ladies. It's great to have you with me, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye for now.